friends. My name is Stephanie Romero, and I am the founder and executive director of Awaken Pittsburgh. I want to welcome you to our podcast, The Ripple Effect. Awaken Pittsburgh is a nonprofit dedicated to fostering well-being, empathy, and compassion for all by teaching and encouraging mindfulness and meditation practices. I also want to take a moment to let you know that Awaken Pittsburgh offers many other opportunities for practice and connection. For example, you can join our online community, which features a space to more deeply explore the topics we cover with our guests. We have weekly posts to spark thought, practice, and reflection. I hope you will come join us to explore, connect with others, and deepen your practice. You can find out more at awakenpittsburgh.org. Welcome to the Ripple Effect podcast. I am really fortunate this episode to be talking with Annie To. Annie is a film and TV actress based out of Los Angeles. She is Chinese and Vietnamese American, born and raised in LA. She went to school at Penn State University Park for media studies, and when she moved back to LA, she embarked on a career of acting and teaching. Her teaching has taken her to South Korea and Spain, teaching English as a foreign language. She has been a professional actress for 13 years. She teaches theater and visual arts with the nonprofit Performance Arts Education, PS Arts, and volunteers with young storytellers to help young students write their own stories. She recently traveled to Senegal to build a school with the organization Build On. She's currently playing Medic Nguyen on the HBO Max show The Pitt, as well as Sunny Sheck on the Stars show Power Book 3 Raising Cannon. When she's not acting, teaching, or volunteering, she's doing hot yoga, taking an urban 10,000 step hike with her partner, giving their dog Hershey lots of love, or helping out her mom. Annie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I feel really grateful to have you in this conversation with me, and I'm really just looking forward to deepening our relationship and knowing you through this conversation.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. I'm excited to start this conversation.
Awesome. Well, I love to start off with just asking people about their own meditation or mindfulness journey and any experience or how they integrate practices into their life. So I'd love to hear about your journey.
Gosh, the first time I heard about mindfulness was from an ex who was learning that he had clinical depression, and he was taught to incorporate mindfulness into his life. And I remember my first reaction to ever hearing about this word was like, what does that mean? Just like knowing what you're doing and why. Like, it seemed so silly to me at the time. Um, though as I like watched his journey and like we separated, um, I started to think about it more on my own terms. And when I moved to South Korea to teach English there was an opportunity to enroll in a meditation class. And that's when I was like, all right, well, I'm curious about this thing. Let me try it. And I let myself get bit by like 20 mosquitoes as we sat still and just listened to our teacher like coach us through meditation. And it was an incredible journey. I think that was what sparked the curiosity from that point. And to this day, I practice yoga as regularly as I can. I take my dog out on a lot of walks, so there's lots of walking meditation that I try to do. I'm not perfect. It's like 80% on my phone or listening to something through my head, through the headphones or something. But the rest of the time, it's like, all right, let me just check in with myself and with my surroundings.
I love that. I love your first impression being like this seems so simple. This seems so
Yeah.
like, because it in like when you tell someone, well, what is mindfulness? Oh, it's paying attention to what's happening right now. They're like, okay.
Yes.
And right, it seems so simple, and yet it's really hard sometimes and really deep, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I love that that was your first impression, because it does seem like this should be really, really simple.
Uh-huh.
And it is, in one regard it is really simple, and then on the other hand, like, it's actually really hard.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's why we sit still, or if we're doing sitting meditation, there's so many thoughts that come at us, and we're like, whoa, 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 one at a time here. And then we keep having to reset our internal voice to do that. That's why it's so hard. It's a practice to
Yes.
distill our inside voices.
Yes, exactly. And also it's I had a conversation with someone for the podcast who is a researcher
Mhm.
and actually works with young people that have mental health challenges or are predisposed to mental health challenges. And she calls them repetitions. So when
Oh,
your mind wanders and you bring it back, you got in another rep, because it's
oh,
brain training. And I just love that framing of it,
yeah,
so that you don't have to be frustrated with the mind wandering. You don't have to be frustrated and feel like, I'm not getting it. Like, no,
right.
actually, that's another rep.
Yeah, that's making it very friendly. I mean, in that conversation too, was the goal like you want to have as little reps as possible then?
Well, I think sometimes the young people that she works with feel like they're failing when they
Uh,
have to keep bringing their mind back to the focal point, when actually, like, that's the good stuff. Like, that's where the juice is, I guess, is what she's saying. It's like, if you're just sitting in the gym and not actually lifting any weights, you're just being with the weights, right? You're
yeah.
not actually getting the reps in. It's when you actually move and do the thing with the weights. So it's the same thing with the mind. Like, we're working with our mind. If nothing is happening up there and you're not actually doing anything with your mind, then you're not actually working with your mind.
That's true. That's so true. Because instead of like the thoughts coming at you or these reps coming at you and you're like, stop, stop, stop. It's a form of like recognizing, oh, this keeps coming up. This keeps coming up. I've had so many reps about this coming up. Why?
Yeah, exactly. The curiosity is super important. Super,
Yeah.
super important. So your career is one that is multi-layered,
Yeah.
right? So you have an acting career where you're actually performing, you're actually teaching, and you're doing advocacy work. And I feel like all of that has a lot of like demand on you emotionally to show up in certain ways, right? So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
wondering what your self-care routine or practices look like. What helps you stay balanced and centered in the midst of everything you're doing?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, especially so for teaching, I'm commuting a lot because I'm going to neighborhoods where they need performance arts teaching the most. So I'm commuting a lot, and because I'm so present in my teaching, whenever I'm driving, I often have to just drive in complete silence. And my partner, who does not approach silence as easily as I do, does not understand it. But I'm like, I need to not have any more activation. It just needs to be quiet. And that's a daily, multi-daily routine that I have, just sitting in silence and not necessarily having any thoughts, just noticing sounds. Um, being attentive to one purpose, which is just driving. That's a practice I have. Yeah, I think with acting, it's so often we get overwhelmed with how many things we have to pay attention to. One thing that I do often is just whenever I try to sit, I think about my feet being apart. I think about my feet being on the ground. I put my hands on my thighs and just sit, just being aware of the ground and the space that I occupy. One of my theater teachers, Robindale Myers, she brings our mindfulness to our theater practice in telling us, like, she'll walk us through, like, all right, be think about your feet on the ground. Think about the clothes on your skin. But think about how your clothes are feeling your skin. So like kind of turning your head into thinking differently um, plays with mindfulness. And I think finding a type of play, finding that curiosity in mindfulness helps us stay engaged in practicing it.
Yeah, I love that. I love the feet on the floor practice. I think that's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I'm the same way when there's a lot going on. I just need to turn the radio off. I need in the car, I just need it to be silent, you know? And I think even at home sometimes I just need it. I need it to be silent, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm appreciating that you share that need.
Yeah, definitely.
And those are also just like really easy things to incorporate. Doesn't take any extra time,
Mm-mm.
right? Because I know I hear from people all the time, like, I just don't have time to meditate. But I think you're really speaking to the fact that you can do these things in the moment that you
Yeah.
have. It doesn't,
Yes.
having a separate, 20, 30-minute time set aside for meditation is great. And there's lots of other things you can do just in day-to-day life.
Exactly. Have you heard of gosh, this is something we do with our middle school kids and something that I try to think about. It's like you think of five things you see, four things you hear, three things. I can't remember what the specific things were. Do you remember this?
Yeah, it's five things you see, four things you can touch,
Mm.
three things you smell, three things you hear, two things you smell, and one thing you taste. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's like a super easy, simple, does not need to be too long way to like tap in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess switching now, since you brought up your students, I'm
Yeah.
really curious to learn a little more. I know you work with a lot of immigrant students, and the climate right now is not great for anyone who's an immigrant. I'm just wondering what kind of things you're hearing from them, what kind of stressors they're facing in their daily lives or at school, and how are you helping support them with that?
Yeah, it is a tough time. Thank you for bringing that up. I work with a couple of nonprofit organizations where we work with young people and students, and i- at our most recent PDs, professional developments, the conversation of what happens when ICE like comes to your school. And the very first time I heard this conversation happen, like a month ago, or a month and a half ago, I was like, oh my gosh. I've been hearing about this on the news, but I didn't think it could come to our school, come to our students. And realizing that that fear was so close, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to prepare myself. And in talking to some of my other teacher friends, I realized that it has already kind of happened to them or to her students, to her parents. She has one student's father who is so afraid to even leave the house. He's been at home inside for at least 20 days now, just does not want to risk going outside. And for the student who has to go to school with a father who's going through that, the student is just going through so many emotional um, gosh, dysregulation and holding a lot. She's got a lot of her on her shoulders, and that's just one student out of so many others who've got such unique experiences. Um, some of my younger students who come from immigrant families, they're a little bit less able to process what their emotions are. They just feel the thing. So like one of my students, she's we do a lot of art in her class, and she's a lot of my other students will just do art quietly, self-reflectively, but this student, she has a lot of force whenever she does art. There's always a lot of frustration and and a bit of anger. And outwardly, she's very friendly, but when she's able to do her art, there's a different feeling in her. So I think for some of our students who aren't able to mentally process what they're going through, thankfully they have a way to express that. But there are so many students who aren't able to. I think they those students withdraw. I think it's difficult for them to tell others what they're going through. I worked with a few middle school students this weekend, and I'm not sure whether this is related to what's going on immigration-wise or not, but just in the awareness or ability to talk, um, she was finding it really difficult. She's like, I have a counselor at school, but I can't bring anything up to them that's going on at home because if I do, they're going to report me. Things are going to happen like legally that I don't want to happen. So she doesn't have anybody to talk to. Um, so that's a kind of struggle some of our students may be facing. Like if they do want to talk, if they're ready to talk, they don't really have anybody to talk to. So as a theater teacher, as a visual arts teacher, my ability to help them can only go so far, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's always a struggle, especially so many things that are out of our control and out of the kids' control that are impacting all of our lives. I
Yeah.
know, as you said, schools all across the country are giving their teachers a list of procedures and things to do if and when ICE shows up, and so that is a common experience right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the experience of the dad that you named afraid to leave the house like that, gosh, that really just hit my heart. I can't even imagine
Yeah.
the terror, right?
Yeah.
The terror that folks are feeling. And we know it's happening here in Pittsburgh. People are being detained.
Yeah.
It is definitely happening all around us. And I'm sure California, where you're at, is not immune from that as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and in those instances, I mean, you're just trying to protect yourself and protect your loved ones, your,
Yeah.
high energy nervous systems going on.
Exactly. Exactly. Dysregulation. Exactly. So what is the, advice that you're giving to folks who you're working with that are struggling with anxiety and stress? Is there anything in particular you're trying out with the kids?
Something that we've been taught was that, we have these red cards that we kind of keep on us in case ICE does show up. They're not able to take our students away. There are like legal procedures that they have to go through. They have to go to the administration. They have to provide like show like a judge approved warrant. And I think there's so many instances where they're not following those correct procedures that they're not able to do that. So thankfully, like we haven't had any of those situations happen, though I think a lot of the teachers I know are prepared for that. So I think finding safety in like, okay, we do know what to do when something like that happens. Finding safety and security in that happening helps us, help our students. And that's a way for us to manage how we can be a supporter for our students. For the general anxiety, I always have this ritual with all my students. It's called the watermelon exercise. It's an it's like adapted from Tai Chi. It's uh it's like it's a breathing exercise without it being so explicitly a breathing exercise. So there are things that we say, and there are body parts that we move that flow in and out, and it's very smooth that we're breathing in and breathing out without even realizing we're doing that. There's a friend I have um, who panics a little every time she's told to take deep breaths. And I get that. I've definitely had a panic attack before where all I did was take deep breaths. And then, like, your head is feeling lightheaded because you're taking so many dang deep breaths. So I understand that, like, okay, saying those words can actually be kind of triggering to some people. So the watermelon exercise is a great way to handle some of that anxiety in a very backhanded way.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And I guess the other piece of that is, like you're teaching theater
Yeah.
and performance,
Mhm.
and stage fright is actually a thing. So
Yes.
shifting to like a different talk of anxiety or stress. So I'm just curious, if you have had that, and how you manage your nerves and how you support your kiddos who maybe are facing some kind of stage fright or performance anxiety. Like, how are you working with that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that happens with a lot of us. I was not a natural born theater kid. I grew up really shy. Found it really difficult to have a voice, much less to amplify it for the stage and for other people to actually hear me. Um, so I relate to that stage fright, that feeling of like I don't want to say anything, much less say anything loud. Um, so I do a lot of the grounding exercises. If I'm on set and I have that feeling, I focus it all on my scene partner. I notice like, oh, their hair is styled this way, and how does it look? Oh, I see that their buttons are buttoned this way and that their collars are going up and down a little bit. Like finding the details, finding observations. Um, as part of an acting exercise, we imbue those observations with a certain attitude. So, like, oh, it's so sweet that they have their collar just folded out like that. Oh, I love it when their buttons are buttoned just all the way to the top except for that last one. So we in acting we imbue those observations with an emotion. That helps. That helps on like taking it outside of focusing on me and focusing it on my scene partner instead, or on other things happening in the scene. Um, yeah, I think for stage fright, I think I tell people just to take a moment. It's so easy to just hop on and immediately say what you have to say because you have all this energy and it needs to come out. And I would say if you're going on stage, just take a moment to see, not to blur your eyes and to blind yourself, but to actually notice. That's a face I see, and that's a face I see, and to notice the smiles and to see the support, um, to help yourself see that support out there in the audience, and that the audience wants you to succeed. Like that is the general relationship between actor and audience. You know, they want to see you do well. Um, yeah, I think that helps a lot for me for when I'm up on stage. It's not to rush into something. It's actually to take a moment to actually notice.
I love what you're saying about like the audience actually wants you to succeed. I love that, right?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful because it's actually like it allows some space for bringing your full presence, right? Because if you
Mhm.
feel supported, right?
Yeah.
If you feel supported by that audience, then that just feels settling to me, just that, right?
Yeah.
It's so
Um,
good.
and something too that came up to me, something that I was taught playing basketball. I don't really play basketball, but one of the few times I played basketball, um, someone I was playing basketball with noted to me like, oh, anytime I shoot for the hoop, I make sure to exhale any air, like all the rest of the air in my lungs, and then I go for it. And now anytime I feel nervous, the first thing I do is expel all the air. And then
Hmm.
that way, when you intake, it feels new, it feels fresh. It's really difficult to like uh, explain it until you've tried it.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, well, I definitely know that there's a ton of research that really shows how breath is connected to our self-regulation, and so we definitely can lower our blood pressure, lower our heart rate,
Yeah.
breath is really, really connected to all sorts of experiences in our physiology that control our stress response.
Hmm.
And I also appreciated how you mentioned your friend who said they every time someone said take a deep breath, it reminded them of their panic attacks. Like that's so common, so
Yeah.
common. I've had so many people that I work with that have said, I'm a bad meditator. I can't meditate because I can't focus on my breath,
Mm,
right? It's
yeah.
it's really, really common. And just thinking people who have asthma, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
want to focus on their breath,
Nope.
right? Because the times that they've had to pay attention to their breathing is because they couldn't breathe, right?
That's true.
And so breath is not always accessible to people. And I think when people think, oh, meditation, that means breath, it can and it often does, but it doesn't have to. So I love that you brought that in because it's so important for people to feel like practices can be accessible to them.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for saying that because that, makes it easy for everyone. Like, oh, okay, I can do other things. That's wonderful.
Yeah, 100%. And you've given already some really great example, like pay attention to your feet on the floor, hands
Yeah.
in the lap, your sensory experience, you're seeing all sorts of different ways we can bring practice into our lives.
Yeah.
So I want to shift our conversation to your work on the Pit because this was how we got connected. I'm
Oh.
in Pittsburgh and you're in a show about on location in Pittsburgh, right?
Uh-huh.
In a well, I guess you're not physically in Pittsburgh doing the video, but it's taking place in our town.
Yes.
And Awaken Pittsburgh happens to work a lot with helping professionals, including medical professionals. And maybe you
Mm.
could just, for folks who haven't seen the show, just say, like, what's the storyline? What's it about? Just to kind of, yeah,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Yeah, so The Pit is an episodic show starring Noah Wiley, who was from ER, about the whole season takes place in one shift of an emergency room trauma center. So the first episode is from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. of the ER, and then the next episode is 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. So every episode, and there's 15 total, takes place of 1 hour of this one day in an ER setting. So that's generally what The Pit is about.
Yeah, that's kind of an amazing idea,
Uh-huh.
actually.
Yeah.
Right? So interesting. And I know personally about ER medical professionals because my mom was an emergency room trauma nurse for
Oh, wow.
25 years maybe.
Oh,
And so she was an ER nurse for many, many years. And if you're in a trauma center, like you see everything. And
yeah.
it is very high paced, it is very high stress.
Mm.
And you are literally witnessing, I had a first responder friend that we were working with in a program once tell me we see people on the worst day of their lives,
Mm.
right? And that's what an ER trauma center is. Like you're seeing people on the worst day of their lives, like they were in a car accident, they got shot. I mean, whatever brought
Yeah.
them there. It's not something good. Not something
Right.
good. So
Right.
I wonder like how is the show capturing that reality?
Oh gosh. Well, there are a few actual doctors on on the crew list who have helped write, who help direct, who help be actors be more specific in what they're doing. So there is a lot of authenticity in the way that the show is being created. Um, yeah, even moving like I play a paramedic, and even moving the gurney, there's like such a specific way. Like there's so many places to hang to hold onto a gurney, but they're like, nope, it's right here. This is how you would control it. So there's a lot of specificity in how we're just portraying the characters that we're portraying. I used to work at a nursing facility. This was during COVID. I wanted to do my part and wanted to volunteer at one, but of course they weren't taking any volunteers. So they hired me on as a temporary nurse aide, which is like a CNA, but just a temporary one. And I was able to like really understand how much work it takes to care for people. Um, and as we transitioned into having COVID infiltrate our patients in our facility, I definitely saw this chaos kind of take over our facility. But because these are healthcare professionals, it's never like a mess chaos. It's very much a calm chaos of professionals who are very focused on one thing, which is providing care to their patients. Um, and it was very scary to see PPE slowly take over our facility. You know, it would be a couple of rooms first, and they would have to be sectioned off, and there would be tarp from ceiling to floor, sectioning those rooms off, and then that becoming bigger and bigger, and then that becoming an entire ward, and then eventually the whole facility was like, there's no non-COVID space in our facility. It's all, we have to say it's just all COVID. So everyone has to don on PPE in like the patios of in the outdoor patios of some of our rooms, and then enter through like the sliding glass doors and that and having patient interactions that way. So being able to have lived through that and work through that, and then seeing that this show is encompassing a lot of that calm chaos. And I mean, I'm sure your mom was able to share some of that chaotic environment, but not losing your head uh, while working there. Um, yeah, and I mean, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but the show does reference time during COVID in a flashback. So, you know, Noah Wiley's character has PTSD flashbacks to that time. So that's what's going on, and I love that the show is making all those experiences very relevant to people who have gone through that today.
Yeah, that's I love that you're just describing, what you went through in your role as a healthcare provider and how that is actually also showing up in the show. I know that, the way trauma works in our psyche and in our systems is that we hold it, we take it with us, it
Oh yeah.
stays with us, right? And so people, especially on the front line caring for others through COVID, they're still holding those traumas.
Oh yeah.
They're still
Yep.
holding those traumas. And so it's actually kind of wonderful that the show is helping us acknowledge that
Yep.
it's still, the pandemic in quotes might be over, right? But the results in some of our lives and in our psyches and in our bodies, we hold our trauma in our bodies, so it's not gone.
Right. And it happens without our awareness. For some of us who are able to compartmentalize, that's what we're doing. We're compartmentalizing all this trauma and putting it away and not dealing with it so that we can attend to other high priority matters. And then when we get home or get away from that shift, we don't deal with what we've compartmentalized. We actually need to engage in healthy or unhealthy behaviors in order to relieve from just the stress, not the trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so that's a lot of the work that we do at Awaken is like helping support folks in those really high stress, high trauma
Yeah.
environments start to work it through.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof, that is tough.
It is tough. It is tough and like so necessary, right?
Hmm.
So necessary.
Yep.
And yeah, so that I'm feeling grateful for you to just having described all that to our listeners, and just want to hold some space for anyone listening that is resonating deeply with that if this is bringing anything up, make sure you're doing a little self-care,
Yeah.
holding that with tenderness and care.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, especially folks who might be healthcare providers on the call.
Hmm.
Well, is there anything, Annie, that you were hoping to talk about or mention that I didn't ask you about yet in the conversation?
Well, I think it's important for me, and I hope this applies to some of your listeners, to incorporate some kind of play into mindfulness. You know, it doesn't have to be just sitting and being bored or whatever, or to some people being bored, you know. I put that in quotes because to me it's not. Though there was a time where I struggled to to sit still with myself with mindfulness. And a way that I approached that was I would journal, but with crayons or with markers, or I only like used colors and didn't use any words. So mindfulness can be like, you can practice it in such a variety of ways. And like you said, approaching it with curiosity, incorporating play, just challenging your mind, daring yourself to notice different things. Oh, I see the light on the trees. Oh, but I see the light bouncing off of this and affecting the leaves. And I see the layers of the shadows. I wonder how this light will look on the bushes or on the flowers. So just putting things all into perspective and putting them together, relating things to each other. We were talking a little bit about light before this, so it made me think about that. Just playing with your mind in a very tender way. Um, I think, yeah, I think mindfulness with some play allows us to repeat it and to keep trying new things and to practice it without even realizing we're practicing it.
I love that. Someone recently asked me what I thought the best, quote unquote, best meditation practice was. And I looked at them and I said, well, it's the one that you like doing, right?
Yeah.
It's the one that you want to do. Because if you don't like it, you don't want to do it, then you're not going to keep doing it. So the best one is, so I love that you're bringing in play because if it's something that you enjoy, then you'll
Mhm.
keep doing it. If it feels good, you'll keep doing it. So that's
Yes.
perfect. And then I'll ask you the question I end with all of my guests.
Uh-huh.
Are there any mindfulness resources that you would love to recommend to our listeners?
Oh gosh, yeah. So I use the app Insight Timer when I have
My
trouble
favorite.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so great. I found out one of my friends also has like a channel on there. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah, I use that because sleep is so important that I put a lot of effort into finding helpful techniques to fall asleep. So Insight Timer helped me a lot with either like sleep meditations or just the noises or just the sounds. And it's such a great app because there's so many different ways to fall asleep or so many I don't know. It's so niche. There's so many niche ways to meditate or to be mindful or to sleep on that app. So I would shout out that one.
Yeah, I love Insight Timer and absolutely. You can just download it for free. You don't even have to pay. There's lots of stuff
Oh,
on there for free. I think they do have a pay option. Like you
uh-huh.
can do a certain thing, but you don't need to. There's so much
Yeah,
on
you don't need to. And
there. Yeah.
if you really like someone who's on there, I'm sure it helps them a little bit if you donate a little bit of money. If you find yourself able to, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Of course, we want people who are spending their lives doing this good work to be
Yeah.
paid for the good work.
Right.
And you don't have to pay. You can download it for free.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Annie, this has been so lovely chatting with you. I'm so happy that we got connected and
Yeah.
gratitude to Chris, my board
Oh.
member who introduced us. And really,
Hmm.
thank you for your time and energy and all the good work you're doing in the world. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. And gosh, very the same. I'm so grateful that you have gotten here to be able to give back to other people with what you have been practicing, what I'm sure has been a journey for you to get to, and that you continue to put effort into giving back and honing those skills and resources. I heard we talked a little bit about how this morning you went somewhere to get connected to other people in order for you to broaden your audiences and the way that you can impact others. So I'm so grateful that you are putting yourself into this, and I'm so glad that you're skilled to balance yourself if it ever gets to be too much.
Ooh, so important, right? So important. Yeah, taking that time to recharge our own batteries is so important. And so maybe that
Definitely.
is a really great place to end with the listeners contemplating what they need to recharge their own batteries.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie.
Awesome.
Say Something Studios.